Pull up a chair and get comfortable. It's time to talk about your federal benefits. Federal Employee Benefit Coordinators presents the FEBC Podcast with Elizabeth Inman and Bryan Fentress.
Hello. Welcome to the podcast. So happy that you joined us again here at FEBC Now. We do lots of topics on lots of things for federal and postal employees. I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that's retirement. After all, isn't that why we all work so hard? Just recently I've had a string of widows and widowers come into my office. And it's just a soft spot I have in my heart when they've lost their spouse. And now they're facing all these decisions all by themselves. I had a gentleman come in that, it just happened to be one of those relationships where his wife handled all the paperwork and he got up and went to work every day. Now, she worked outside of the home too, but their arrangement had just settled into, they'd been married for a long time together, where he was the primary breadwinner and she took care of the paperwork. And he got his retirement packet in the mail, and he sat down at his table and he said, "Elizabeth, it is absolutely overwhelming." He said he had adjusted because it had been a couple of 2 or 3 years since his wife had passed. And he said he'd adjusted. He did his checkbook. He took over paying the bills, of course. He'd done okay since his wife had passed, but he said, he's just tired. He's just tired. He's ready to retire from his federal job. And then that paperwork came in. And he said, it's a stack of papers about this big. And he said, this is hard. He said, literally, it was almost like he felt like he was going through the grieving process again. That level of paperwork for him to sort through, he said, just the instructions alone, he felt like he couldn't read. He said something just happened to his brain, and it was like somebody had flipped a switch and his brain turned off, and those instructions was like reading Greek. He just couldn't do it. Now, I will tell you that as I sat down and started going through the paperwork with him, he said, wow, I'd made that a lot harder than it really was. But really and truly, going through the paperwork, there's an awful lot of questions and boxes to be filled out that's just not clear. And so, as I have gone through this second career of mine, I've never forgotten the feeling I had when I went through the paperwork myself. It's a lot. There's just a lot of information there, and it is indeed overwhelming. So, a few years ago, we went through and come up with this federal survival kit for retirement. We thought, what can we do to make it easier for everybody? Now I'm not real sure if you're a widow or a widower that there's anything that makes it easier. There's just something called the widow's brain or the widower's brain. It's fog. You just go through a fog. My mom went through it. My stepmom went through it. I think everybody goes through that. But we've tried to make the process as easy as possible when it comes to retirement from the federal government or the Postal Service. So we start right off, as you open this up, this is a promotion that we're doing, a free survival kit. If you're thinking about retiring anytime in the near future, a few months out, couple of years out, why not get one of these? It's free of charge. You just contact us. You can contact us by calling 918-396-5171 or just send an email to me, elizabeth@febcnow.com. We'll send you one. Happy to do that. Happy to have a conversation. But how about if you just take some of the papers out? Look at it. Quick start guide. Step number 1, step number 2, step number 3. You can do this before you even dig into the paperwork. So how about if you just grab, the survival kit, pull out some papers, and look at the 17-point assessment. This 17-point assessment. What if you, before you even get started on your paperwork packet, maybe it's going to be another year before you retire. What if you take this 17-point federal retirement assessment and you go through all 17 points? Can you do it on your own? I don't know. I really don't know. There's some terminology on here that I'm not sure I was equipped. I worked my way up to a level EAS 26. I'm not real sure I was equipped to do that come time for retirement. Some of you will, some of you won't. But again, that's why we're here. It's why I built a second career to help people like you. Now, why would we want to do that? Why would you want to do that? There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, most people are most worried because they've heard the stories that, oh, well, Joe retired. It took him 6 months to get his first retirement check. Those things happen. Who wants to wait 6 months to get their first retirement check? We don't want to wait 6 months on our check. And indeed, the way you do your paperwork, how quickly you get the paperwork in, how you fill it out can impact how soon you get that first retirement check. The second biggest fear about retiring is, what if I can't get the paperwork filled out? Will they even let me retire on the date I want to retire? Those are legitimate reasons why you might want to have a professional who's trained in the retirement process help you. But I've got 17 things on this 17-point federal retirement assessment that are very critical towards a successful retirement. To make sure that you do get timely retirement checks, to make sure that the amount you're getting in retirement is the correct amount, to make sure that you're comfortable knowing that you have enough income in retirement, to make sure that you've made proper decisions towards your retirement, to make sure that all of the data is correct, building up and leading to your retirement. All of those kind of things, that you've properly aligned your estate towards retirement and even after retirement. All of those kind of things. Did you select the right date for retirement? Did you select a date that's going to end up costing you money in retirement? I mean, that's number 3 on my list right here. The best date towards retirement. What's involved in picking the right date? Number 1, are you getting all of the income for retirement is rolled up into the best date to retire? That's right. You can cost yourself money in the date you select for retirement. You can cost yourself money in the accruement of retirement income, but you can also cost yourself money in annual leave or sick leave benefits all around the retirement date you select. How about just simply, when am I eligible for retirement? That's number 1 on the 17-point federal retirement assessment. How is that calculated? And is there a different formula based on the years of service that I have? Did I buy back any temporary time? Do I need to buy back temporary time? What about military time? Those are all things that circles around number 2, retirement eligibility. When am I eligible for retirement? What about your pay stub? Are there any elements on your pay stub that has anything to do with retirement? Now, it seems like a redundant question, or it seems like even a silly question, but you would be surprised how many people sat down in the chair in front of me that they don't know the answers to that. Do you know the majority of the people that sit down in front of me don't know how to read their pay stub? I mean, I was a EAS 26 in my federal career, and there were things on my pay stub I didn't know how to read. Nobody had explained them to me, and when I asked, they didn't know. What about the standard form 50? That is your personnel action form. Do you understand what's on it? Do you know what all the codes are? All of that is relevant to your current pay status and to your future pay status as a retiree from the United States government. Very important information. Do you know you're entitled to get an annuity estimate before you retire? Those are all elements on number 4. Very important information here. I've talked so many times on this podcast that I bet you can teach me about your beneficiary forms, right? That's number 5. And same thing with survivor benefits, number 6. Many, many, many things to know about survivor benefits. A lot of variation about survivor benefits. What if you have a dependent child with special needs? That changes survivor benefits. What about your Federal Employee Health Benefit Plan? Oh, what about the new Postal Service Health Benefit Plan? What about health care? What about long-term care? Things of that nature. That's number 7. And then there's the Federal Employees Group Health Insurance. What about all of the different options on FEGLI? Did you know that there's some options on Part B? The 5 units of Part B that could be free at age 65? Wonder if you knew that or not. Might be interesting to have that information before you decide to retire. What about how does private insurance figure into a retirement package? Yeah, things you might want to know on number 8. What about thrift savings plan updates? Do you know what's on the horizon over the next 2 years in the thrift savings plan? Have you seen any of the announcements they've made? How about number 10 in technology and retirement? Oh yeah, there's some big things coming with technology in your retirement plan. And then pension maximizer. Wonder what that means. I wonder if any of the 9 things I've already talked about has anything to do with technology and retirement. You know, this generation, baby boomers, that's retiring, do you know that there's actually 12,000 people per day turning 65? Does that have anything to do with pension maximizing? Oh, yeah. And I've talked quite a bit in past podcasts. You ought to look up some of those past podcasts, by the way. Yeah, go to the FEBC Federal Employee Benefit Coordinators podcast. Look at some of the history of the podcasts. Look at what I've had to say about risk number. What does a risk number have to do with your retirement plans? What does it have to do with your thrift savings plan? It has everything to do with both of those things about retirement. That's number 12 on the 17-point federal retirement assessment. Social Security. It's a big, big deal right now. Social Security. It's always going to be a big deal. How's that tied to the FERS special supplement? It's directly tied to it. I can explain how it's tied to it if you just want to give me a call. Happy to have a conversation with you about that. And then number 15 is the Medicare decisions. If you've just recently been following my podcast, once again, that's a hot topic because postal reform got passed. Postal reform is changing postal employees' lives as we speak. And Medicare decisions is a hot topic for all postal employees and all federal employees right now. Taxes and retirement. We don't get by without taxes. Talking about taxes and retirement. That's number 16. And then almost everybody, when they get ready to retire, start thinking about things related to estate planning. You know, by the time we retire, many of us has already experienced things with our own parents, for sure our grandparents, when it comes to estate planning. You know, things like POD, TOD, beneficiary forms, those kind of things. So that is a topic that you need to address before you retire and to have some strategies in place. I've got that as the number 17 point on our federal retirement assessment. Those are all topics that we go over with you when we sit down and do a 17-point federal retirement assessment with you. Happy to go over that with you. Lots and lots of other things gets woven into that little tapestry called federal retirement when we sit down and do a free consultation with you. So check out our Facebook page, Federal Employee Benefit Coordinators. Check out our website. It's called FEBCnow.com. And don't forget to give me topics, things you'd like to talk about. Now, what you can look forward to, you know, we got a heavy agenda coming up. We've got open season that's going to be greatly impacted by postal reform. It's going to impact everybody. Postal employees must pick a new postal service health benefit plan during this open season. It's going to create heavy traffic for all federal employees. And then we've got the #1 most popular date for retirement coming up in December. So you can bet we're going to cover topics on those 2 items coming up. I've got some special guests coming up for our podcast coming up, so be sure and tune in right here. Check us out on LinkedIn as well. Don't forget our YouTube channel. Looking forward to seeing you soon.